with it. Start recording.
Fine, we're on. We're live. Ugh. So, what's been happening, Andrew?
Nothing.
You're a bit under the weather, buddy.
Yeah, I've been sick, man. It's not good. It's not ideal. It's actually scary now because I don't know the difference between a flu and COVID. And for like 24 to 48 hours when you think you're pretty sure you have COVID, it fucking sucks because the process doesn't help and the people you talk to along the way to get it figured out don't help. And I feel like the first time I got tested last year at the like very start of COVID, it was such a like professional and like well thought out process of how to get tested. And this time I was like, where do I go? And they're like, just come to the store. And I'm like in the store? Do I go in to get tested? And they're like, just walk in. And I'm like, should I wear a mask? And they're like, oh yeah, wear a mask. And I'm like, what is happening? And then I get there and the test was completely different to last time. And then the process of waiting was different as well. And she said within 24 hours I'd find out my results, and it took like 27 hours, but that led me to believe for 3 hours that this isn't going to be 24 hours. I'm going to have to wait till Monday to find out my results. And it was actually 24 business hours. So not only that, I'm going to have to isolate for 3 full days and then wait till Monday to talk to my doctor, if my doctor can even book me in. And then for 3 hours I'm sitting there thinking all of that and just like melting down, and then I get a text that says negative and just all of it goes away, and then I'm at the cinema watching Spider-Man.
Oh God.
God.
It sounds like bureaucratic fatigue is setting into the system where like even they don't really care. They're just like,
Yeah.
they're like,
People-
there's rules, but fuck the disease. It's just the rules. Like,
I
People
thought
are
it was
putting
surprising how casual they were.
people are putting way too much faith in the vaccination. They're like, oh, it'll deal with it.
They didn't even ask me, surprisingly.
if you're vaxxed,
Yeah, no, not at all. They
How
asked
come
me at the
we-
cinema, but they didn't ask me
Yeah.
when I went to get tested.
I was gonna say we have to ask people if they're vaxxed before they cook fish and chips, but you're not asked before a COVID test.
Yeah,
You walk into
I
a
thought that was a
doctor's
little odd.
office. Like,
Maybe they had it on record or something though. Maybe like they just knew.
Yeah.
What
We'll
type
give
of
them an out.
what was the test like? Did they like take your blood, or they put you through a big machine?
She did take my blood, but then she walked out and the doctor came in and she was like, "Who was that?" And I was like, "That wasn't the test." But it was actually because I've had 2 tests now and I had one right at the start of COVID. It was a lot different because the experience was that I drove up for the first test. I drove up. She came out to the car, knocked on my window, and told me to like put all my stuff on. She's in like all the hazmat gear and shit. And I go in, and she gets the really long, thin, like Q-tip kind of thing. And she tells me to put my head back, and then like very slowly over time puts it in the back of my nostril, like all the way to the back of my skull. She starts scraping the back of my brain and stuff, and it hurts, but I'm like ready for it, and she's doing it slowly. This time I go in, and it's a much shorter one. She just goes in one nostril, jams it in, and gets what she needs, pulls it out, and I'm like, oh, that sucked, but it's over. And then she goes straight in the other nostril, does it
Oh.
again, and I'm like, oh man, you already got it. What are you doing? Like, is it going to be different in that nostril? Come on. And then she does my throat as well, but like with a different one, obviously. And it was just like, but the whole time as well, she's like training somebody to how to do all this shit. And there were multiple times where she'd like say something that sounded like she was talking to me, but then she'd go, "Sorry, I'm just telling her how to do that." And then she'd turn to her, and I'm like, "Oh, you're talking to her." But then she'd like put her hand on my arm or something and start saying like, "So what we've got to do is," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah," and she's like, "No, no, I'm still just talking to her," and I'm like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" It just felt so weird, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if you've ever been to the doctor or the hospital and been in the scenario where there's like a new nurse or something and they've got to do your stuff. And it's always weird because like sometimes they ask permission, sometimes they don't. And when I broke my leg, it happened multiple times and they had to get my stitches out. and I was like fine with it. But the difference between having a new like nurse or something take your stitches out versus like one of the like veterans or whatever is night and day. And I know it's necessary to help them learn, but Jesus Christ, it sucks.
Yeah, I went to the doctors to get a COVID test early on, and like I normally get a lot of throat kind of stuff because of asthma and other things. So I was like,
What
oh yeah,
other things?
I was just like, but anyway, yeah, and I went there and I got like one of the training doctors that were there, but he didn't really focus on the COVID stuff. He had like the hazmat suit on. He did the awkward test where he hit the back of my nostril with one fucking thing, but then he asked me the whole bunch of questions to like fill out all the tick boxes to make sure he covered absolutely everything um on his sheet, and he was like, "So, are you sexually active?" And I'm like, "My throat has nothing to do with being sexually active. Like, it has no fucking has no use for that." And then he's like, "Got any prior injuries? Any broken bones, buddy?" And I'm like, "I don't want to be here anymore."
He's like, and when you're having sex with these men, are you receiving? And you're like, no, it's not that.
Is that COVID resides on a male genitalia, and that's the only way you can get it.
There's literally no other option.
I can't remember if I read this or if it's a joke I made up. So anyone listening has to Google it before they repeat it to anyone. But I'm pretty sure Dr. Fauci told people you can only get AIDS by having sex with your dad in the AIDS pandemic.
I don't believe that.
I might have made that up, but anyone who got AIDS, he was like, well, well you know why.
Good old father son thing. Quality time.
Or I think it might be a joke versus I might have heard it versus I made it up.
Dude, I'm tired today. I'm having no intellectual rigor on this. I'm just
We'll tell the audience it's 3:35 in the morning and that's why we're like this.
this he said that in the early 90s. He said a bunch of stuff about AIDS, as far as I know, that turned out to be wrong.
Was AIDS
Like
new
he's like,
in the 90s?
yeah, it was. Yeah, it come out.
Like it come out the closet? Like
Yeah, they
Why
didn't
is
know
there no
what was
AIDS
doing it.
too?
They didn't know what was doing it, and I think it's because people weren't like being straight up with their doctor, like. But they're like, yeah, you reckon you got it from a doorknob? And they're like, yeah, something.
like the doctor's like reviewing all the cases, and they're like, everyone's going to Africa for some reason, and like they're going on this specific safari.
Mm.
The AIDS safari.
It's like, well, you get AIDS from what? Like, I thought you gotta look this one up as well. But I heard ages ago that you got AIDS from having sex with chimpanzees. I'm assuming that's wrong.
I think you're thinking of The Cure, dude.
Oh, it's poor monkeys.
Yeah, it's only that.
It's like that the Norm Macdonald joke about the witch doctor telling him to go get his dick eaten off by hyenas. It's like the only way to cure AIDS is by fucking a gorilla. Is it me or is the AIDS in this gorilla in cahoots?
I like the one where he's saying that, as far as he's concerned, if how you get AIDS is by having unprotected sex with men and doing intravenous drugs, then it's cured. Just don't do those things.
Oh man, AIDS in like African countries. That shit's crazy, man. People I don't know how it happens over years, but people believe that you can get and cure it by almost anything. And I think the worst one is that they think you can cure it by having sex with a virgin. And so people with AIDS are having sex with like 12-year-old girls to try and cure their AIDS, which not only does it not work, obviously, it's like the worst thing you can do in that scenario. It's so unbelievably bad, and I don't know. I honestly think it came about because some guy just wanted to fuck a 12-year-old and needed an excuse, and now it's just like a. It's not like a tradition, but it's like like a wives' tale kind of thing.
Yeah, I get you. They have a lot of witchcraft stuff too over there where people still believe in witches and they do a bunch of crazy stuff about it.
Funny thing about that guy, he didn't even have AIDS. He just put it on. Like
He pretended to have AIDS.
he's like, I'm a doctor, I've got AIDS, and I want this 12-year-old girl.
Yeah, what are they gonna do? Be like, you don't have AIDS?
It's like, look, I smeared fucking muesli all over my crotch.
Oh god. Is that what AIDS looks like? Rolled oats?
That's good.
uh, but you were talking to me about witchcraft the other day, Aaron, and you were saying that there was a heap of it over in the UK. And when you were talking to me about it, I was like, haha, funny, funny, babies being buried in the forest. And you were like, no, this is serious.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not funny.
And it's equally unfunny now, William.
It's just like, I don't know. I guess being over in Australia, I just don't have a concept of like going out into the forest and sacrificing my firstborn.
Unlucky, man.
Oh, the Bible
You're not
seems
hanging
to
out with the
promote it.
right people.
Yeah, I've been meaning to do like a deep dive on witchcraft to try and understand what it is they think they're doing, but I haven't got around to it yet.
Or maybe they just know something that we don't.
No, I don't think they do, man.
I think that would have showed itself over the last however many thousands of years they've been sacrificing kids.
Um, on that note, I guess we should start on the first topic of today. Have you got anything for us, Aaron?
I don't.
All right. I got something that could launch us into something.
All right.
So, over the last 2 days, I spent a lot of time with family, and like my family is made up of two different sides. I got my father's side and my mother's side, and I'm the only kid between my mother and my father. So it's very interesting to talk to, how would I say it, children that have half my dad and half my mum, but half of someone else as well. And
Three halves.
yeah,
Wait. So you're saying that you have a mother, a father, and you have maybe two half siblings on each side, right? So a group
yeah,
of five in total, two from mum, two from dad, something like that.
that's basically the story. I was trying to say that they're all step brothers and sisters, all seven of them. And
Oh,
And
so
who's the
yeah.
third parent?
yeah, the third parent's me. I just haven't gotten
Okay.
around to it yet. um, yeah. Anyway, so laying the foundation. I spoke to one of my brothers and another one of my brothers from both different sides of my family, and it's interesting because my brother on my mum's side, which I love my family like dearly, but I was talking to him, and no matter what I said about what he was saying, he was always pulling it down to the negative. Like, and I mean, like, the
Mystic.
conversation was difficult. What were you going to say, Aaron?
Just pessimistic. Like, do you reckon it was a mood, or do you reckon it's a general personality thing, or
I
what do you
legitimately
reckon?
think, well, this is my point here, is I think it's literally a decision. Like, he hasn't necessarily had the easiest life, but at the same time, he's made decisions that I would say are hard to deal with, but I wanted to bring it up because I thought, well, he seems to be stuck in this negative framework where even though I was like, if you get up and you go to work and you earn money and stuff and you're involved with the family and you're taking care of the kids and that's all good stuff, like that's positive, virtuous things to think about and to do. And he's like, nah, I think I'm just waiting to die. And I'm just like, whoa, man. Like, don't want to be stuck in that place, hey.
And see, I almost think, man, I think he needs some freedom or something. Like if he feels like he's waiting to die and he's not, he's just waiting for that, then maybe, I don't know, maybe he needs like a holiday or something or change things up, because that's how you feel when you're trapped.
Yeah, because like,
And there's all these commitments that we kind of have to have that trap us, but it's like it can be hard at times.
yeah, very hard.
And they're good and stuff. Like they're good in the long run and all of that. But sometimes there's just moments where it's like you're just trapped and it's not much fun.
And like, it's sad to kind of see that he's pretty much decided that at 35 it's there's not much left in the world worth living through. But it's like, I don't see why he's very not grounded, if you know what I mean. And I feel like, especially like, I kind of admire this in you, Andrew, where like you're very grounded in the moment and you make every moment a funny joke and stuff. It's like he does not at all. Like he
I
just
find that to be my downfall.
that's a skill.
It's like my
Yeah.
worst quality most of the time.
Do you
Like,
reckon you'll be joking while you're dying, Andrew?
I'll probably say something wacky on the way out.
Yeah. I'm just saying, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to be brave at all when I die. That's what I've made my mind up on.
I'm gonna pretend I'm like halfway to death, like before I actually am, and I'm gonna describe it to be like the worst possible thing, as if I went to hell.
Yeah,
It'll
yeah,
be
you got to
fucking
drag it
awesome.
out. Drag it out for like be on your deathbed for like 6 months.
You just be like screaming for like 8 hours straight.
You know when people are like on their deathbed and they start to lose all their weight, like they get real thin in places where you don't normally get thin, like the wrists and stuff, like you just sort of melt away.
Yeah.
Don't do that at all. Be you're looking perfectly good, but you're like, this is hell.
Well,
I've
actually,
withered away to nothing, and
that does
you're like,
happen a lot of the time. That they kind of just like, obviously you lose weight because towards the end you don't want to eat at all. You have no appetite, or you like can't force yourself to eat. But
yeah,
something I've noticed, I've seen, cancer patients, and kind of the opposite happens because as you go through chemo, I don't know if you know, but like they lose a lot of weight, and that's a combination of factors. It's the chemo itself, it's the loss of appetite over, however long. But what's weird is that when someone dies of cancer, or yeah, I guess they die of cancer, they don't die of chemo. When they're dying of cancer and they're kind of on their deathbed in the last like I would say 2-3 weeks, they actually bloat, and it's really like weird to see. And not only do they bloat, the skin kind of turns yellow. And so towards that last week, and especially the last few days, they just look fucking awful. And I feel like if I was at that point, I'd be happy to cut my life a week short for my family to not remember me as like the big bloated Simpson looking guy, Because I want some dignity, and cutting a week off is like fine by me if I'm remembered as I shouldn't say white human, but you know what I mean. Like, Jesus, I'm
you
I'm
know.
not turning this into a race thing. I just like I don't want to be remembered in that specific way.
I want to go on a hunting trip. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna, like, when I know it's time, probably 37, I'll head out on a hunting trip and not come back.
That's amazing. I'll probably end up, you know, 55 wandering the streets waiting for someone to be taken out by a bus and like jump in front of it and be like, ha, and then just get
Oh yeah.
fucking crippled.
Oh my god. I'm just watching my chicken. It just jumped the fence.
By the way, Tolstoy's book, The Death of Ivan Levitch, he literally spends the last month of his life in bed screaming.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, because he had like
I didn't even know he was sick.
a like a pancreatitis thing or whatever. They don't really say what it is in the book, but it's basically this sickness where his stomach won't stop swelling and stuff, and he spends like the last month in his study just like yelling.
Oh, so he's not even like on his deathbed. He's just like sitting at a desk.
Doing his work, bro.
Yeah, they're like, can
Yep.
you keep it down?
Yeah, and in the book leading up to like when he starts to lose cognitive functioning, he's like a what the fuck are they called? He's like works in the courtroom as like the guy with the gaffle or whatever.
A
He's
judge?
yeah, he's a judge. So, and like he's like
You got gavel, but
Yeah, you can remember Gavel, but you couldn't remember the word judge?
yeah.
Oh
Anyway,
my god.
yeah, he's a judge, and he's like lost cognitive functioning, and apparently he was just sentencing people to life, just like he was sick and like not doing very well.
Because he was bored.
Yeah, he's like, life is taking the world away from me, so I'll fucking take yours on my way out.
He's like saying that to them. He's like, this isn't a true verdict. I don't care. Off you go.
Ugh, that fucking book is amazing, though. Would recommend.
yeah, anything I've read of Tolstoy's been really good.
Hmm.
I haven't done War and Peace yet though, because it looks too long.
Yeah, it sucks that the modern day doesn't give a lot of time. Well, you don't. You can put a time aside to read a book, but fucking hell, it's hard to get that time.
Yeah, well, Anna Karenina was like that was a long book, but it was quite enjoyable and all that. But it took me a little while, and then War and Peace is longer, and I don't know if I'm ready for it.
Yeah, but
I just
just
think
to
if it can't
close.
be. Go, Will.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, just to close on what I was talking about with my brother earlier, before we talked about death briefly.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah, before we started agreeing with him.
um, is I feel like the more you fixate on either the future and the past for long periods of time, you sacrifice the future and not the future. You sacrifice the present moment and everything that could make the present moment enjoyable. So that's my summary of it. If you just want to expand on it or move on, you know.
I actually
I
do
don't know.
have one comment on it. And he kind of reminds me of this guy I used to work with. And after work one day, we were chatting, and we were kind of like chatting in a circle, and we were doing like a hypothetical, kind of like, what would you do if like zombie apocalypse shit? I'm sure you've done it before, and we're all talking about like what we would do and what our plan would be. Um, and this guy just said he just said he'd kill himself,
Is this
and
me?
that was kind of jarring. Oh shit, was that you, Will?
I think it was me.
No, it was.
Yeah, it was you, Will.
Yeah.
But that's what's so funny is because everyone was like, oh, I try and get to one of these type buildings, or I'd focus on getting bottles of water, and you were just like, kill myself, who cares?
The will to
And
death.
it's like, well, that's yeah, realistically, that's probably what you do, but this is a hypothetical. At least just like act like you're gonna survive a little bit.
I guess that just shows my naivety in my youth.
Now you'd try, you reckon?
I reckon I probably would, and I'd probably try to take as many out as I could as I went down.
Mm. What do you
Zombies.
think the odds are of
No
you
people.
eventually killing yourself in a zombie apocalypse?
What the odds are for me to kill myself in the zombie apocalypse?
Yeah, like, do you think if it was to come down to it, you would just last as long as you could, and then, like, if you get eaten, or would you, like, if you knew it was imminent, would you just, shoot yourself or something?
Well, it seems like there's a difference. The thing that comes to mind here is like, have I been bitten, and am I going to turn into one of them? Because if that's the case, then I will just take myself out because I do not want to cause
Mhm.
unnecessary suffering after I die.
Yeah,
But
I
if
think
I'm
that's
not bitten,
interesting. That have you played The Last of Us?
no, I have not.
Because there's, oh, maybe I shouldn't spoil it. It's fucking been like 12 years since it released. It's fine. Anyway, the main character is like immune to zombie stuff, and she's the only person in the world who is. But when she's like 14 or 15, she gets bitten by a zombie at like a I don't know, a mall, like a deserted mall with her friend, and they both sit down, and she's like got a gun and she's about to shoot herself just so she doesn't turn into a zombie and stuff. And I don't remember why, but she doesn't end up doing it. And then over the course of, however long, she's like, shit, I got bitten, I got infected, but I'm not turning into a zombie or anything. And then they kind of figure out from there that she's like immune to it all. But
Ah,
like, imagine if you found out you were that guy, but then you like killed yourself just to avoid it. And it's like, ah, shit, what a waste.
That's such a weird
what if you did
fucking.
that with COVID?
Yeah, yeah, dude.
Why kill yourself over COVID? It's like, oh, you got a really
Someone,
bad cough.
oh
Bang.
no, the like if you die from COVID, it's pretty traumatic on the way out. I can definitely see some people trying to avoid that.
I just,
Like being
I'm
put
a,
on a ventilator and shit and not being able to breathe and knowing you're probably gonna die anyway, and the ventilator is only there to like extend you a little.
Do you reckon it's like drowning?
Similar, I would assume.
I've
Surely
heard dying of
suffocating and drowning
COVID
would
is
be similar.
the most peaceful way to go.
Is that before or after it turns you inside out?
Oh my god. I'm trying to get this chicken because
Which
she's
chick?
been jumping into the garden, getting under the tomato plants, and I was trying to work out what she's doing. Turns out she's laid an egg under here, so she's coming back to like roost on it.
And you're just like, thanks, I'll have some breakfast.
Yeah, tomatoes and eggs, bro. It's good. But
A
she's
chicken.
she's now I've taken her egg away, and now she's looking for it. And she's like, oh, it must be under these tomatoes somewhere. And she's like scratching everything up.
You've like traumatized this chicken. You
Oh, dude,
gaslighted the chicken.
You're a cradle
she's
snatcher.
traumatized me. I
Traumatized
had an
you.
idea for a zombie movie once where it was everyone is the person who's been bitten but keeps it secret because they want to try get like the rest of the group to safety. And then when they finally get to safety, they have a big speech where they're like, I won't be going with you. And then like showing the bites. And everyone's like, me too.
What?
And then they're like, well, that was pointless. We're all infected. No one's
Yeah,
leaving.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, tragedy. So, I guess if there's another thing I wanted to talk about briefly, if you're up for talking about it, but
That's why I'm here.
um, do you think?
Come on.
I think that happiness, or how would I say it, tranquility, is separate to having financial gain.
Definitely.
And I think too many people are fixated on materialistic growth before putting their mind in order and then engaging with the social world. Still playing with the chicken, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm holding her right now.
And I think it's useful to know that you don't have to focus on financial gain to have happiness. You can enjoy the moment and you can also engage with things like nature, and that doesn't cost anything. And I don't think we do it enough in society. Because I was in a band, and immediately after the band disbanded, me and the guitarist went and first thing we did after spending the last 4 years, like a 4 year period in studios on our days off and then going to work and stuff and just not doing anything at all. First thing we did was we went out and we engaged with nature. And that was one of the best things that had happened to me in the past 10 years.
You went into nature and that was the best thing that's happened to you?
Well, being in a band is remarkably fucking depressing. And it's like going and climbing a mountain or going and walking around a lake and stuff. well, that brings me happiness. And I think it's very useful to kind of remember to do things like that, because sometimes the world can be so dark that you forget that the world also has beauty in it as well. So that's why I bring it up, because I spent 4 years not doing that, and it
I
wasn't good.
agree. The annoying thing with money is you need it, and you need a certain amount. Like, it's not clear what the number should be, but if you've got no money, I feel I feel like money's going to bring you happiness just because there are certain things that you won't have. And then maybe once you start getting a bit of money, like, I don't know, it's hard to work out what the point would be, but you can't have financial gain without, I don't know if it's almost like spiritual growth or something. Like I feel like you can't run the materialist sort of viewpoint into wealth because you just end up buying fancier versions of things you already have.
Yeah, Seneca talks about that problem where it's like the more money that certain people have, the more alcohol and the more drugs they take, and
Yeah.
it's like obviously, well, he says that giving people more material or more substance, I guess you could say, would just let them play out their personality traits more. So it's like give people heaps of money that like drinking alcohol and they'll just keep drinking alcohol. Where if you give money to someone who, I don't know, a dumb hypothetical, like likes to run a school or build schools and stuff, they'll use that money to build schools and stuff. And it's like maybe the centerpiece of that is basically the individual or the actual personality, which I quite like as like the thing to focus on and then work towards financial gain to kind of ripple out your personality into society after you get your affairs in order and you understand who you are.
I think that's right. Like, there's there's definitely something here. It's just so hard to tease it out into exactly what it should be. But there's a thing where currently we all have a materialist perspective. We just sort of we don't know how to see the world without it. But when you read ancient stories, often like the very events that happen in nature are interpreted as like the acts of like gods, and that we're all participating in kind of like a big sort of narrative that, rather than being like, oh, there was a storm because of water evaporating and like, the hot and the cold, whatever it is, it's like they were like, the gods are doing that for a reason. And maybe they had stories, or maybe they just made one up to go with whatever the particular crisis was.
Mm.
But I feel like that would be a kind of fun way to go through the world, because you could be like, well, there's a thing that's happening and there's a reason it's happening. And if I act the right way, I'll win favor, and then my life will be good. And instead of viewing the world as a place where kind of dead matter does things, you get to participate in like a living structure. And I feel like that's what getting back to nature kind of awakens in us. Is you go to nature, you see everything, it's alive, it's in a system, you can kind of get an intuition of the system by looking at it. And then, like, ultimately, I think for a human to sort of take in the role as kind of gardener, where you set up a little natural system that's flourishing, and then including animals in that system and getting all the benefits, and finding out, when like there's a lot of plants that grow fruit, but then they also have flowers, and the flowers can be used for teas. And there's some plants where the leaves can be fed to worms, and then the worms make fertilizer for other plants. And like, you can interact with animals like chickens that have quite simple behaviors, but if you interact with them properly, they do what you want them to do. And sometimes they just jump the fence and get in your tomatoes. But
Yeah,
it's there is something about like just getting back to nature, not needing the social system of money and oh my god, this chicken.
yeah.
Ah,
I don't know.
yeah, not
It's
yeah. Sorry, I was trying to get the chicken off the fence and it jumped the fence.
yeah.
Um,
Oh my god.
It, it
but just
doesn't like the
interacting with these
conversation of
systems
happy. Sorry.
and instead of requiring kind of like society's status and society's money and all of that, like society's credentials, you get to just participate with a natural system that if you do the right thing, it flourishes. And if you do the wrong thing, it dies. And like, you know, if you're a good person and you see like plants are kind of, it's hard to feel compassion for plants. Like if a plant dies, it's kind of, you just don't make the same mistake. But like if you do something with an animal where it ends up having a rough time because you made some dumb mistake that you didn't know, you know, you feel bad about it. And then when the animal's doing well, you feel good. And all of it operates independent of money.
It's a different kind of wealth, and I think that's. I don't know if it gets taught enough because it might have just been the fact that I grew up in a household that was not really. It was too money orientated, but like that took me till I was 23 to learn that, financial gain isn't necessarily the primary objective, which it like all my family members seem to be following the same trajectory, and all the ones that aren't following that trajectory are just upset that they don't have money. And
Yeah, yeah.
like the reason I wanted to bring it up, like the topic of happiness, is because I think it's different for everybody, but I think that there's some things that you can do that at least situate yourself back in your like psychological experience. Because I would really like to hear like your take on happiness, Andrew, because I don't think we've ever actually had a conversation about your take on it. But like mine
I'm not a
shifted,
professional in either having money or happiness, so I don't know if I'm the guy to ask, man.
but, but you're always laughing.
Yeah, because I gotta pretend, dude. People worry otherwise.
It's like the Joker.
Oh,
Dude, imagine if I was like me, but I was never cracking jokes. Do you know how depressing it'd be?
dude, you'd be like another coworker that I know.
Dude, I was actually thinking on the Joker topic that uh, fucking Willem Dafoe last night in that movie that we won't talk about was a better Joker than Jared Leto was. And I thought that was mind blowing because that's not even slightly what he was going for. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. So what are you asking? Well, are you asking my opinion on happiness?
Yeah, I'm like, if you would you choose? Oh no, that's a really dumb hypothetical. I was gonna
Money
say,
or happiness? Money
yeah,
every day.
yeah. I don't know because I feel like happiness is like an individual choice that's separate to money.
Don't
Yeah, but
do
you
it.
can be happy and still starving and homeless, you know? I mean, potentially. No. Actually, no. But the point is, like, everyone says that money can't buy happiness, but it would alleviate so many worries that it would counteract not directly making me happy and completely indirectly improve every facet of my life that I wouldn't have to worry about, like, work and stuff. And, it depends when you say money what you like referring to. Are you talking like rent being paid or are you talking like rich,
Yeah,
So this
And
is the
that would
thing.
obviously differ.
There's the point where if you have enough money and let's say, you know, your needs are kind of met and the additional like, you know, making additional money doesn't make you happier, it makes you unhappier, then money's not the source of happiness for you. But if you
Mm.
need money and you got things that you want and you got to pay someone for them and the acquisition of those things would make you happy, then it's like get that money. You're like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah.
What's like the happy, like, single moment or like long period? What's the thing that made you the happiest in the last like few years? Because I mean, mine was codeine, but that's probably not a great example.
yeah, I've been doing a bit of coding myself for the app, but just
I can I
um,
can I can tell you when I was the happiest in the last 5 years, and it's really
I know when it was for me.
all right.
Gym at Sylvester Street.
Gym at
Like,
Sylvester Street. That was pretty good.
yeah, I love that too. I was also there.
Back when
Dude,
we all just fixed our postures and got a good strength foundation.
um,
What a time!
my happiest time was actually when I woke up one night and I couldn't sleep. So I decided to sit in the backyard with my cat for like 3 hours, just looking at the sky. That
That's pretty good, man.
that
That's
was
wholesome.
like that. I was at peace in that moment, and like I don't know, that feeling of tranquility and like I guess situated in the moment was something that I had not experienced. I don't think ever, which was really weird because it was a different kind of happy. It wasn't like a sudden rush of joy or a sudden rush of endorphins. It was like a I'm sitting in this moment and I don't necessarily care about anything else that's happening around me, and I'm sharing like the moment.
With a cat.
Yeah, like something that I hold quite dearly to myself.
How did the cat feel? Was he feeling the same, or was he just out there because you were?
I think I think she had it sorted. Like I went and sat down with her, and she just knew. She was just like sitting there watching like the crickets or whatever in the backyard. I couldn't see the crickets because my eyes aren't good enough. And she was just like she had it sorted. She was like, "This is what I'm doing for like the next 3 hours, and you can join me if you want."
She's watching the cricket.
Yeah. Yeah, on our
That's the happiest moment.
projector. But
Mm.
Always reminds me of there's that story of the happiest man. I think it was Bertrand Russell ever met. Sorry, I threw a rock at some pigeons and it's a good shot. But in the story, there was a gardener, and his garden had an infestation of rabbits, but it wasn't enough to destroy the garden. But he had to keep on top of it to stop it from doing that. So what he'd do is he'd carry a rifle with him everywhere he went as he's doing his day-to-day tasks. And whenever he saw a rabbit, he'd like take a shot at it, and he'd often get him. And that was his like it was this little element of like as he was going through his day-to-day routine and making everything nice, there'd be these moments where he'd see rabbits and he'd get to be like click click click. And I think that's probably like the balance you want in life. It's like lots of like it's almost like you got a routine where things are going well, but then you want little opportunities in the moment that you get to take that give you just like a little rush. And like kind of like a chance to like display some skill, win a prize just at random times throughout the day. I reckon that'd be a pretty sick way to go.
yeah, and dude, it must have been so fun just shooting rabbits.
Oh, by the way, I threw a rock at the pigeons because they land in the yard and they eat the chicken feed, and then they transfer mites onto the chickens. So it's not cruelty; it's actually animal welfare.
Not for the pigeon.
The pigeon technically gets free food.
Yeah.
It's like if you had a
The
pile of
pigeons.
food. Sorry.
I was gonna say the pigeons are the gardener. They get to have free food, and then now and again there's this little opportunity where I throw a rock at them, and they're like, "Ooh, exciting!"
I was gonna say, imagine if you had a pile of food in your living room and you just had like a whole bunch of homeless people come in and try and take the food, and you're like, I think that's an appropriate time to use a gun. Metaphor doesn't hold up very well.
We should end. I gotta go to work.
All right, we'll close. Have a good day, everyone.
Oh, is that the end?
Yeah, that's the end now.
I was gonna tell my story about the time I brutalized that pigeon.
Was that before or after work?
It was during.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.